Sports, in my opinion, is one of the greatest creations man has ever came up with. Sports has been a part of human culture dating back to 70,000 BCE or 9,113 years ago. Sports in the early days didn't necessarily involve many dribbles or spin moves, but the one core purpose for sports has never changed ever since its creation nearly 10,000 years ago. That purpose is entertainment. I like to think of all sports as similar to a TV show. When you're watching the game, no matter what sport it is, whether it's basketball, baseball, soccer, or football, while watching these games play out, a story is being told to the fan. Whether it's the casual fan who's only paying attention to half of the game while hanging out with the boys, or the media guy who is taking notes in between quarters, there's a story being told. That story can be as complex or as simple as the person wants it to be. As you can see from the content I post on this channel, my favorite sport out there is basketball, and it doesn't really even come close. I'm not just a fan of the game of basketball though, I'm almost more of a fan of the history of the sport rather than what's going on today. I love going back watching old games, not because I think the game was better back then, but I love to watch players that I never got the chance to watch today. Instead of talking to you guys about the finals that's going on right now, I want to take advantage of what the NBA app offered us earlier this year and introduce a new series to the channel where we take a look back from every NBA finals dating back from 1990. In these videos, we will cover the two teams' journey to the finals along with the storylines and narratives that played out during the series. If you enjoy the video, please make sure to leave a like, comment, or subscribe. Also, make sure to follow all of my social media pages. The links to those will be in the description. But other than that, let's get to the video. This is what happened in the 1990 NBA Finals.
You can see all of them feeling no doubt with your eyes closed. My feelings ain't getting attention. You think that I'm bitter? I say that I'm trying though. I be screaming all out to the ceiling. I feel I'm a villain. Only thing I ain't hiding no. Every night I used to be crying. I wasted my time, but now I smile. So they pressing the issue.
The 1990 NBA Finals involved the Portland Trail Blazers and the previous year champions, the Detroit Pistons. Let's take a look at Portland's journey to the finals first. Portland to start the year was coming off of a nightmare season the year before, firing their head coach Mike Schuler in the middle of the season. They replaced him with assistant coach Rick Adelman, and even though Portland was able to sneak into the playoffs as an 8 seed, they were eliminated in 3 short games by Magic and the LA Lakers. It was clear after these playoffs that changes needed to be made to the roster. The team gave up on their top pick Sam Bowie and decided to deal him to the Nets for the former 3-time All-Star Buck Williams. Buck Williams was a former number 3 overall pick in the 1981 NBA draft. He was actually the player selected right after Isaiah Thomas. He started his career in New Jersey and immediately saw success making the All-Star team in his rookie season. As his career went on with the Nets though, the team started to become stagnant, with the team only winning 26 games in his final year. Buck was such a critical pickup for Portland, he ended up playing the second most minutes on the team for the season. He played a more complimentary role once he signed with the squad, focusing mainly on what he did best: rebounding and defense. He gave Portland a much needed inside presence, averaging nearly 10 rebounds per game for the squad. He also helped improve the team's defense as well. Portland's defensive rating improved from 14th best the previous year to 4th best in the league. By the All-Star break, Portland was already 33-13, almost surpassing their amount of wins from the previous year. They ended the season with a 59-23 record, giving them the 3rd best record in the Western Conference. Portland's best player, Clyde Drexler, had another All-Star caliber year, averaging 23-7-6. He was selected to the All-NBA 3rd team as he was starting to make a case for being one of the best scoring guards in the league. In the first round of the playoffs, Portland was matched up with the inferior Dallas team. Portland was able to make quick work of the Mavs, winning the series in 3 stress-free games, making it their first series win in 5 years. The second round, however, would be a lot more stressful for Portland. They ended up being matched up against a Spurs team that ended up sweeping their opponent in the first round as well. The home team would win every game in the series, with Portland winning by just 3 points in Game 7 thanks to a clutch 36-point performance by Terry Porter. Portland would end up meeting the Phoenix Suns, who shocked the world the previous round, upsetting a 63-win number 1 seed Lakers squad, finishing them off in just 5 games. The Suns would put up a fight with them not losing a game by more than 7 points the entire series. However, this Portland team was just too talented, and they would finish the series off in 6 games, moving on to the NBA Finals for only the 2nd time ever in their franchise's history. Now let's take a look at the Bad Boys Pistons journey. Detroit was coming off of a dream season the previous year, finishing with a 63-win season and a series sweep in last year's finals against the LA Lakers. They decided to bring back the championship roster and see if they could win back-to-back championships, which doesn't happen very often in the NBA. The Pistons had another strong season, having a stretch during the season where they won 13 straight games between January and February. Then they went on to win 12 more games in a row in the month of March. finished with the best record in the East that year with a 59-23 record. Isaiah Thomas, Joe Dumars, and Dennis Rodman all made the All-Star team that season, along with their head coach Chuck Daly, who was selected to coach that year's team. Another notable award won that season was Dennis Rodman's Defensive Player of the Year selection, as it gave us the infamous speech with Rodman being brought to tears at the podium after receiving the award.
I wanted this one so bad.
The Pistons were matched up in the first round against an Indiana Pacers team that offered little resistance to the defending champions, with each of the Pistons' 3 wins in the series being by double digits. The Pistons were then matched up with a New York Knicks team that had trouble keeping up with the juggernaut. The Pistons made quick work of them in just 5 games. The Pistons made it back to the Eastern Conference Finals while only losing 1 game. The road to the finals was about to get a lot tougher because of this guy. Jordan's Bulls had one sole focus the entire season: beat this Pistons team. They had lost to Detroit in the playoffs for 2 straight years. Pistons were notorious for their creation of the Jordan rules, where they would always show 2 defenders on Jordan's side of the floor, no matter what side he was on, while also being very physical with him, trying to tire him out so he wouldn't have enough energy to close out the game if it were to get tight. Jordan knew the Pistons' game plan and committed his summers into the weight room to be able to take the punishment he would endure in this series. This series was an all-out war with Jordan absolutely playing out of his mind. He averaged an absurd 32 points per game this series. Even with those numbers, the Bulls would come up just short in Game 7. It just wasn't the Bulls' time yet, as Jordan's supporting cast did not help him at all when it came to scoring the ball. This game was also known as the game Scottie Pippen struggled the entire night with a migraine. Even though Scottie had a poor performance, it was really the entire Bulls squad who let Jordan down. Anyways though, we have our final set with a very interesting matchup. We have a team in Portland who weren't necessarily the favorites to come out of the West, but has been playing very great basketball the entire year and had some fortunate luck avoiding playing the number 1 seed Lakers in a 7-game series. And we have the defending champion Detroit Pistons, who were trying to win back-to-back championships, something that hasn't been accomplished at that time since the '66 Celtics. Game 1 started out electric, with Portland jumping out to a quick lead to begin the game. Portland would end up taking that lead into halftime, up by 5 on the road against the defending champs. Portland would continue to have control of the game, taking a 90-80 lead on the Pistons with 7 minutes left to play in the game. After a timeout, Isaiah started to get going, cutting the lead down to 92-89 with around 3 minutes left to play in the game. Buck Williams would respond with a jumper to give Portland a 5-point lead, but after that, Isaiah just took over. He would end up scoring 16 of his 33 points in the fourth quarter, and the Pistons would survive Game 1, winning 105-99. In Game 2, Portland would be in a similar situation that they were in Game 1, taking a 53-45 lead into halftime. Heading into the fourth quarter, Portland still had control of the game, but just like in Game 1, a Piston player got hot. This time though, it was surprisingly Bill Laimbeer who got going in the fourth quarter. He would end up hitting 6 3-pointers this game, which tied Michael Cooper's finals record for the most 3-pointers made in a game. The Pistons would then take a 94-91 lead after a John Sally tip-in with only seconds left to play in the game. On the next possession, Clyde would make 1 of 2 free throws, making the score 94-92. On the following possession, Isaiah would miss a potential dagger layup, giving Portland a chance to tie or take the lead. Terry Porter would end up getting fouled, converting on 2 clutch free throws to tie the game at 94 apiece. There was now 10 seconds left on the clock, and there was no secret who was about to get the ball. Isaiah, however, ended up missing the potential game-winning shot, sending the game into overtime. In OT, the Pistons looked to be in control with a 4-point lead with only a minute 30 left to play. Porter went back to the line to hit 2 more free throws to cut the lead down to 2. Then on Portland's next possession, Drexler tied the game at 102 after a clutch mini with less than a minute left to play. Portland would then hit 2 more free throws, making the score 104-102. Bill Laimbeer would then drill a back-breaking 3 for the Pistons to take a 1-point lead with only 4.1 seconds remaining. Coming out of the timeout, Portland decided to put the ball in their stars' hands. Drexler would get the inbounds pass and penetrate to the right before getting fouled by Rodman on the penetration. The Pistons were over the foul limit, so this would send Drexler to the line with a chance to take the lead with barely any time left on the game clock. Clyde would hit both free throws, and that would end up sealing the game for Portland. They would steal home court from Detroit. After the first 2 games of the series, Portland felt like they could play with this team. If Isaiah doesn't get hot in game 1, then they could have a 2-0 series lead heading back to Portland, a place where the Pistons haven't won since 1974. To make matters even worse, they would be without their Defensive Player of the Year, Dennis Rodman, who was dealing with a stiffened ankle that wasn't 100% before the series even started. To add even more adversity to the Pistons squad, Joe Dumars, who was last year's Finals MVP, got news that his father's condition took a turn for the worse and he would likely pass away either before or during Game 3 of the Finals. Dumars decided to have his wife not tell him whether or not his father passed until Game 3 was completed so that he could try his best to focus at the task at hand. It was a good thing that his wife did not tell him because Joe went on to have a fantastic game in Game 3, scoring a game-high 33 points. He would end up leading the Pistons to a comfortable 121-106 victory, taking back control of the series. Dumars' father would end up passing away an hour and a half before tip-off. Dumars' wife called Joe on the sidelines after the Pistons got the victory to inform him of the sad news. Dumars wouldn't miss any games after the death of his father, but he would understandably decline press interviews, opting to instead trying to focus solely on the game of basketball. In Game 4, the Pistons would get off to a slow start, trailing by 10 points at the end of the first quarter. They would end up taking a 5-point lead before halftime after turning up the intensity on the defensive side of the floor. Isaiah then would go on to score 22 points in the third, giving the Pistons an 81-65 lead before the start of the fourth. It looked like for a second the Pistons were going to run away with the game and potentially the series, but Portland began to fight back. They would end up going on a 28-11 run, using their great defense to create opportunities to get out on the fast break to create easy looks. Portland would actually climb all the way back and end up taking a 1-point lead at the 5-minute mark of the game. The game would then go back and forth, and it would end up with Buck Williams at the free throw line with a chance to tie the game with 35 seconds left to play. He would only make one of the 2 free throws, making the Detroit lead 106-105. Then on the next possession, Bill would commit his 6th foul of the game, forcing him to the bench and sending Clyde to the free throw line. He would end up making both free throws as Portland would then take a 107-106 lead. The next possession, Isaiah would sink a clutch jumper to give the lead back to the Pistons with barely any time remaining. On the ensuing possession for Portland, Porter would attempt to drive to the basket, but was cut off by Dumars. Isaiah got the ball and was fouled with seconds left to play on the clock. He would make both free throws, giving the Pistons a 3-point advantage. After some made free throws from Portland and a wide-open layup from the Pistons, the Blazers would then have one final chance to tie the game up and send the game into overtime. And this is when chaos happens. Danny Young would get the ball and knock down a deep 3-point shot right at the buzzer. The Blazers thought that they tied the game. The Pistons thought that the game was over. The officials gathered together and decided to call the shot as no good. After looking at the replay of the shot, it looked like the refs made the correct call with it being after the buzzer, and the Pistons would end up going up 3-1 in the series. At the start of Game 5, the Pistons would start off slow again, but they still held a 4-point lead after the first quarter. They ended up taking that lead in at halftime, and Detroit would be 1/2 away from winning back-to-back NBA championships. But just like in Game 4, Portland was not going down without a fight, and they would end up taking a 76-68 lead with around 10 minutes left to play. Detroit's Vinnie Johnson would then start to make his mark on the game. He would end up going on a 9-0 run by himself, giving the Pistons the lead back. Portland was able to weather the storm for a little while, but once Clyde fouled out of the game, it would put Portland in a very tough position. Detroit would end up closing out the game on another 9-0 run, with Vinny scoring 7 of the points, including a clutch mid-range jump shot over Jerome Kersey to take a 2-point lead with little time remaining. Terry Porter had a chance to force a Game 6 with the last-second 3-point attempt, but it didn't go in. Detroit did it. They had won back-to-back NBA championships, cementing the legacy of the bad boy Pistons. Isaiah Thomas was awarded the Finals MVP this year, with him averaging over 27 points per game for the entire series, along with 8 assists. Looking back at this series, some people may not have realized how competitive of a series it was. Considering this was the Blazers' first time playing on this big of a stage, they played really good basketball. If a couple more plays went their way, then the series could have looked a lot differently. This Detroit team, however, was just special. No matter how much adversity this team faced, they never looked to be rattled. They went to Portland not having won a game there in over 15 years, but now they were leaving Portland with another ring on their finger. That's the end of the video. Let me know in the comments what you think about the bad boy Pistons or this forgotten about Portland Trailblazer squad. Also, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. It's your boy Sed, and I'm out. Peace.